20146, your SMS line at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. You are watching Business AM. Thank you very much for sticking to Metropole Television. This are the biggest headlines that you are waking up to today, this morning. An analysis of the Tanzania and Kenya trade balance indicates that the two countries have a balanced trade, with Kenya having imported goods worth 23.3 billion in 2017, while exported goods worth 23.7 billion to Tanzania. However, a worrying trend out of the data is that a trade between the two countries has been on a downward trend since 2014, when Kenyan exports to Tanzania hit 64.7 billion shillings, and in 2015, when imports from Tanzania peaked at 79.4 billion shillings. Analysts have blamed this on the somewhat bad political differences and tit-for-tat diplomatic tussles between the administrations in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam that have made it difficult to do business across East Africa's big economies. Now, the spotlight now is on Tanzania's new president, Samia Hassan Suluhu, as to whether the relations between the two nations will improve and foster trade. This morning, joining us here on a Business AM to look into issues between the relations trade-wise between Kenya and Tanzania is Adare Kavins, international relations expert. We do also have Vincent Kimasab, who's an economic analyst as well. Adare, good morning, sir.
Hello, everybody from Nairobi. It's great to join you once again. It's been a while. How are you doing?
It's been a while. Is it good to say Happy New Year when you meet somebody for the very first time this year?
I think so. I'm glad to be back on your set.
Happy to be back, sir. All right, now let's talk about how strategic is Tanzania to Kenya on the economic front.
Well, there is no doubt that Tanzania and Kenya enjoy very strategic, economic relations because of a number of factors. The first factor is that they are neighbors.
Yes.
And then we have also seen that because of that proximity, Tanzania and Kenya have no choice but to find amicable ways of living together.
Yes.
There are cross-border communities in both countries. And so it doesn't just touch on trade, but also on cultural issues, because we have even similar tribes that are found in both sides of Kenya and Tanzania. Now, because of that close proximity, we have also seen the issue of trade becoming quite important. And it is not just about trade. In fact, for Kenya, it's about even food security, because Kenya now imports quite a bit of its foodstuff from Tanzania. We talk about maize here, we talk about wheat and other commodities like onions that are found quite ready market in Kenya from Tanzania. And as you introduced in your opening statements, this business has kind of been balanced, although it has had its fair share of challenges. Beyond the trade there, we're talking about investments. Kenyan companies have invested in Tanzania. Kenya is also the biggest economy in East Africa. And therefore, a lot of products destined for the hinterlands, although Tanzania is a coastline state, but still quite a bit of products that have gone into the Tanzanian market have also found access through Kenya. So looking at that trajectory of relations, it's not hard to understand why these two countries have been joined at the hip in terms of trade, in terms of cultural exchanges, but also in terms of political exchanges. The fact that we all belong to the EAC.
Yes.
And so there's just too much that is going on between these two countries, and the spat that we've seen over the years from time to time is not really good for the cordial ties between Kenya and Tanzania. And there is already a precedent set that indicates that even though there is this spat, the need for cooperation simply outweighs some of the difficulties that has been encountered between the two nations. That's why you see the trends in trade withstanding some of the headwinds on the political front.
Yes.
Sure.
Pretty much. All right, let me bring in Vincent at this point as well. I mean, when you look at where we are between Kenya and Tanzania. Somebody want to ask you, when did this tussle, this tit-for-tat economic policies or sanctions between the two nations start? And is there anything that we're looking forward when Samia Hassan really now takes over that office fully?
Just to build on what my colleague Otieno has said,
yes,
is that when you're neighbors, you have no options but finding out how to live together. Because if it rains, just look at a very good example. Recently, when we had COVID-19, we had what we call the long truck drivers who were transporting goods from Kenya and vice versa, having challenges at the border. And just as whereas the engagement was trade, but the public health issue showed you very clearly that these neighbors have to find a way of working together. Look at government infrastructure in the border of Namanga, the border of Oleitoktok. There is move towards having shared facilities. You have buildings that is shared by the two governments so that they can facilitate trade. What I'm trying to just point out to you is these neighbors have to find a way of working together.
Yes.
Now, where did the challenges begin? I think you have to isolate the issues and look at it from, there is the power stroke, the ideological issues. So remember that after independence, the philosophy that was used in terms of growing and prospering the economies, then the Tanzanian model was having a strong government role in building and driving the economy. So I don't want to use the socialist tag because at times I found that to be cheap and to be is in its narrow way of classifying people. It's just that Tanzania said we want the government to have a stronger role in growing and building the economy. And then for the Kenya, it was a balance. Let's also grow both. Let the government actively have a role, but at the same time grow the private sector to take a domineering role. Of course, both of them have pros and cons. One of the cons, or one of the pros for Kenya, for example, was acceleration in its economic growth, unlike Tanzania. But at the same time, that the problem for Kenya was that this philosophy of growing the economy is actually what translated to what we see as corruption today.
Yes.
Because the senior people in government are the ones who became the leaders in the private sector, telling you very clearly that there was just transfer of money from the public sector to the hands of private individuals. So that for me is how I see that was the genesis. Even when you look at Magufuli, what really drove Magufuli was purely having the state as a strong development actor in the economy. If you listen to his accolades, was he brought back the Tanzanian Airways, built the bridges, the hospital. So you see a strong state being active in the economy. And that is what people give him credit for.
Yes.
So is there hope for improving things? I think you see a signs of hope. I took time to listen to the trajectory and the history of the current president, Madam Suluhu.
Yes.
And you see a steady rise. You see a work in civil society. You see a work in government. You see a working with women. And you can actually see somebody who understands what needs to be fixed.
Yes.
You see somebody who's ready to consult.
Yes, Vincent, I'm sorry to cut you short, Vincent, but I like what you're saying, that when you look at her, you look at the history, but what your critics say, well, but she comes from within the party that has somewhat been having problems with the Kenya relations.
No, you have, I don't know if I should say this on TV, but I think let's give people credit where they deserve.
Yes.
I don't buy this thing of painting people with a broad brush. I want to
Yes.
give everybody credit. You may come from you may be coming from the party, yes. You might be forced to work within the structure, but I think we've seen individuals who are able to transcend at times beyond the challenges and the confines of a party to actually traject countries and economies in directions that
Yes.
actually inspires people. So I will give her the benefit of doubt. Remember, she is the woman. She is the first woman president in the region. Girls are looking up to her. Women are looking up to her. And we have to be the people rallying and cheering her and giving her the benefit of doubt. We cannot be a part of the choir that is cheering and actually seeing that she might not make it. Then that for me, I don't belong to that school of thought, and I think let us cheer up. And actually, I'm even challenging the media, and I'm happy that you've invited. Look at even this panel; we are all men. And I think it is important that we diversify and we borrow what Barack Obama said, that you cannot be a team that half of your members are not playing. So me, I have joined the other half by cheering Madam Suluhu, wishing her well, and she has all our support.
Pretty much convinced. Let me bring you in that conversation. I mean,
Right.
let's talk about it the way Vincent is really talking about it. But I hear Vincent speak, then it's got this optimism. It's a new face in that position, so probably different energy. But then, Vince, how would you therefore summarize the relationship between Kenya and Tanzania under the late President, Dr. John Pombe Magufuli? And therefore, do you share the same sentiment with Vincent that, well, it's a new face, so probably new energy, so it's a wait and see?
Well, thank you very much. I think Vincent was right in quite a number of his expositions about the new president.
Yes.
There is always something about we call idiosyncratic qualities of a person, and Madame Suluhu certainly brings to the table a new way of doing things. We have, for example, seen in one of our public appearances together with our tight security details wearing masks. This was not the case under the late president. And so there is a possibility that you're going to see a difference, and certainly there are different people. As Vincent indicated, she's risen through the ranks, and she's somebody who really appreciates the idea of diversity, the idea of meritocracy, herself having been a product of hard work, of dedication, up to where she is right now.
Yes.
And I really also hope that she kind of understands the idea of unity, because she served under that docket within Tanzanian government under Jakaya Kikwete, for example, when she was the union minister. And we've also seen certain characteristics about her, like visiting the opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, when he was unwell. And that is something that Tanzanians really need right now. That somebody who can reach across the divide and say, hey, look, we have a country to deal with, we have a country to protect. And these aspirations that she espouses in Tanzania are the similar ones we expect of her in the international forum. If she believes that national unity, that working together within the nation is good, that is the same case when it comes to the international system. There are challenges that are cross-border that can only be, assailed by working together.
Yes.
And this is something that I believe will prompt President Suluhu to provide masuluhu kwa yale shida yanayokumba mataifa yetu ya East Africa. Now, looking at it in terms of where we are coming from.
Yes.
So here the president in Magufuli, somebody who, as previous speaker indicated, they believed in state developmentalism, a very strong hand of the state in managing the economic affairs of Tanzania. He's somebody who was a nationalist par excellence. He believed that Tanzanians deserve the best and that no foreign interference was allowed in Tanzania. And that expression somehow put him at loggerheads, where with some of his compatriots in the East African region, we saw his non-tariff, barriers approach to business enterprise. These are things that brought quite a bit of friction. But again, give it to him. He's somebody who tried to elevate the position of Tanzania in the community of nations. his footprints in the development of infrastructure and connectivity, something that has been identified as a big role in terms of rivaling the dominant position of Kenya, especially in terms of sea access.
Yes.
So he's put up very good infrastructure. He's strengthened the negotiating position of Tanzania in the East African community. But I think where he was not very strategic was in terms of looking across the borders and seeing where the countries overlaps and the roles overlap. And that was quite evident in how he handled, the COVID-19 pandemic. Certainly, nobody has a right to tell Tanzanians what to do. They do have internal state competency to approach their affairs in a manner that is consistent with their beliefs and values. However, if you look at the world today, a supermajority of UN nations do believe that COVID-19 is a serious existential threat to different countries and regions. Look at what we are talking about in Kenya today. So I believe as Suluhu takes office going forward, one of the key defining metrics of her leadership will be how she handled this pandemic.
Yes.
Because this pandemic has, for instance, been a very key concern in Tanzania's relationship with Kenya.
Yes.
Kenya believes there is COVID. And that this disease is quite serious, and that all efforts, both local and international, should be harnessed to cushion communities, to cushion livelihoods, to cushion industries from it. But that was not the case, of course, rhetorically speaking, from what we saw in Tanzania. So I believe that going forward, one of the biggest tests, and the President Kenyatta is somebody who believes in multilateralism. He is the current chair of the East African community. I believe in that position, he has an opportunity to work very closely with the new president in Tanzania to somehow manage these, cross-border tensions. Because Kenya and Tanzania certainly deserves better, and they should be allowed, these countries, to find harmonious ways of working together. Competition is good.
Yes.
But destructive rivalry is not good for Tanzania, it's not good for Kenya.
Yes.
Certainly.
Vincent, let's move towards clearing this conversation about Kenya and Tanzania in this sense. I mean, what was really a standout is the style of leadership from Magufuli. Well, that's exactly what made him Magufuli, for those who actually knew who Magufuli was. Do you think that so far that is going to be the biggest difference? And if that is going to be the biggest difference between Samia and Magufuli, how is that going to be a benefit for Kenya in terms of our relations between Tanzania with Tanzania?
I think you have to look at it. Remember that the Kenyan president is currently the chair of the East African community.
Yes.
Is as the president.
Yes.
So you have and you even remember, you listened to what the president how he spoke yesterday. That's the Kenyan president. You could see the inspiration. You could see the rallying the region, that we are in it together. We are in a difficult time. So one of the things that you expect out of this season is a closer collaboration, particularly in addressing the current pandemic, and that is COVID-19, because we are in it together. It is not a question of one country versus it is we can only succeed together. So that for me is deepened partnerships, particularly in addressing common problems. And then number two is also building on what we already have. There was a time when the border was closed. You remember when there was some chicken were banned, some cows auction, and that really led to frosty relationship. And immediately when there was a slowing down of business, the farmers in the northern part of Uganda actually were up in arms, saying to the president that, hey, where will we take our onions? Where will we take our fruits that had found markets in Marikiti together with Nairobi, an easy place? And for a long time, there was a projection that it is Kenya that is benefiting more from the trade. But actually, just as my colleague Gotino has said, that food security is an area that Kenya has become, Tanzania has become a buffer. So it is a mutual relationship.
Yes.
The better you work on things, the better the two parties benefit. I remember very well, even from a social, cultural perspective, you have Maasai's right all the way from Oloitoktok. If you actually go to Namanga, across the border, you see, as in these are the same people that only the borders are artificial. You are in Amboseli National Park. It goes all the way to the Kilimanjaro, which was actually part of Kenya at some point. So we actually having a conversation about two brother and sisters, or two sisters, and the only way you can say that here you are, when it is hot on the other side, you are ready to support one another. So for me, I remain an optimist that and as a leader, and that we can only but hope, we can only but cheer them and support them, correct them where they go wrong, by actually correcting them truthfully. One of the things that I actually appeal to the media and actors like us is, let us do it and do it factually.
Yes.
Because at times we make very sweeping statements that are not backed up by evidence and data, when you actually realize that on the ground things are different. My brother, just visit the border. You will go to Namanga. You can go when you go to these borders, Busia, you realize the common people do not require even visas. They are crossing in bicycles. They are supporting one another. And for me, that is what integration should be. If you visit Europe, for example, and you can take a train right all the way from Berlin to France, to Frankfurt. So for me, when we have movement of goods, services, people, that is how we actually even share and leverage on each other's capacities, talents, skills, on where we are not doing well. We are better together.
Convince, clear this conversation in just 2 minutes, if you may, because that's the only time that we have this morning on this Kenya-Tanzania issue. The position of Tanzania in EAC, there have been some grumblings from EAC members that probably Tanzania is not really cooperating well. Do you think, therefore, the Samia's style of leadership, which would we expect is going to be totally different from Magufuli's, will change the view that EAC members have over Tanzania?
Well, certainly, I think there are two parts to it. There's going to be continuities, and there are going to be probably new ways of doing things. Continuities because Tanzania's national interests are not likely to change because they have a new president. If you look at how statecraft is organized, then you have a feeling that there are certain fundamentals that are still going to define perhaps how President Suluhu is going to approach her task as a head of state.
Yes.
However, that said, I think the trend of the day, the trend of the 21st century is that integration and globalization is better than nationalistic stance. And I believe this message is well appreciated also in Tanzania, that while it is true that every nation has specific national interest agendas, but there is still the community of nations under humanity, and that these communities must find amicable ways of working together. I believe the challenges of ethnocentrism, the feeling that one country is better than the other, the feeling that one people is better than the other, has been a major challenge in terms of cementing relations between Tanzania and other compatriots in the EAC. So I believe going forward that both Tanzanians and Kenyans, as well as other members of the East African community, must begin to appreciate the role that each country brings onto the table. And I believe that there is a chance at diplomacy, to sort out some of these tensions. And I believe that by promoting closer integration and working relations among these peoples, their governments can find it rational to find diplomatic and sustainable ways of working together. And for me, I do see a better future for Kenya and Tanzania going forward.
Pretty much convinced, Adare. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'll bid you goodbye, but once we come back, we're still with Vincent, and we'll introduce the next panelist who's going to join us shortly as we look at other bigger events that you're waking up to this morning. Thank you very much for watching the first part of Business AM Economic Review.